Thank you, Greg, for those awesome playoff picks. And now we have my real men picks. So it is week 14, like we've been saying. We said it in our intro. And you are either in the playoffs or you are fighting to get in the playoffs. So it is an important week. And these are the matchups you absolutely have to pay attention to. You have to pay attention to your matchups this week. So my first player to go hard with is wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. of the Giants. He is, of course, the one of the bright spots on the Giants. They don't have many bright spots this season. He is kind of the guy that is keeping hope alive in Giant land. He has had 52 targets in the last 5 weeks, and he has caught 73% of them. So he's not only being targeted a lot, but he's bringing those balls down. Obviously, a couple weeks ago, we saw that amazing one-handed catch. They are playing the Titans in Tennessee, so you shouldn't have to worry about weather too much in this game. But the Titans are giving up the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. DeAndre Hopkins just absolutely torched them last week for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is going to be a game of just two crappy teams going at it, but the Titans defense is really struggling against wide receivers. And Beckham has gotten 90 or more yards every game in the last 5 weeks. So I think he's going to get in the end zone for sure this week. He hasn't been getting a ton of touchdowns in the last 5 weeks. He only has 2. I think he'll get one this week, but he's definitely been getting you 90 or more yards. Get him in your lineup. This is a great matchup. My second go-hard pick for this week's matchups is quarterback Ryan Tannehill of the Dolphins. Yes, Ryan Tannehill. He's typically a guy that's not going to be on fantasy radars, but he has been doing pretty doggone good this season. He's had some pretty impressive numbers, definitely his best season that he's had thus far. He has had 20 touchdowns so far and only 9 interceptions this season. That is a great ratio. My goodness, Cutler definitely hasn't been doing that, but Tannehill's been getting it done. They are playing at home versus the Ravens this week, and the Ravens have the 31st defense against the pass. They are terrible against the pass. The Ravens have given up 13 passing touchdowns in the last 4 weeks that they've played. Of course, they had their bye week, week 11, so it's actually 13 touchdowns in 5 weeks, but one of those weeks they weren't on the field. So they are giving up a lot of touchdowns through the air. And this is an important game for both teams. Both teams are fighting for a wild card spot in the playoffs. Both teams are trying to get in the playoffs. So this is an important one. I think that Tannehill is absolutely going to use Mike Wallace a lot, so get him in your lineup. And I absolutely think that he's going to throw. He could throw for possibly 300 yards. He also has the threat of running the ball. He's run for over 200 yards this season, and I think he's going to get you 2 to 3 touchdowns. So if you have a bad matchup for one of your other quarterbacks, he might be out there on some waiver wires, and you might need to just start him if you usually bench him. So now let's move it on. I have my go soft picks. These are guys to watch out for because I don't think they're going to be getting you very many fantasy points this week, and they might possibly be even guys to sit if you have better guys on your bench with better matchups. So my first go soft this week is running back Alfred Morris. He is a very different running back when RG3 is the starting quarterback versus when RG3 is not the starting quarterback, because with RG3, there's always the threat of RG3 pulling it down and running himself. Right now, teams are just stacking 8 in the box against Alfred Morris, and he's not doing a whole lot, so you definitely have to keep that in mind. The Rams is who they're playing this week, and the Rams have improved a lot in their run defense. In Week 10, they only gave up 23 rushing yards. Week 11, they gave up 29 rushing yards. Week 12, they slumped a little bit against the Chargers. They gave up 112 rushing yards. But then again, last week in Week 13, they only gave up 60 rushing yards, and that was with 3 different running backs running the ball. So they have really clamped down on that run, and it is not going to be easy for Morris to get going. And he has only had one 100-yard game this season really, that is not impressive considering what he's done in the past. So this is a matchup that I think is going to be tough for them. Do not look for him to get over 100 yards. I don't think at all. You'll be lucky if he gets a touchdown. I don't even know if that'll happen. And the Redskins also use Roy Halou Jr. in the passing game, so that takes away from your PPR points with Alfred Morris. So he might be a guy that you actually need to bench this week. My last go soft pick is tight end Greg Olson of the Panthers. Yes, he is one of the best tight ends in the game, but he has a difficult matchup against the Saints, and it is in New Orleans, which doesn't make it any easier. Week 9 versus the Saints, he only had 3 receptions for 30 yards and 0 touchdowns. So he did absolutely nothing against the Saints when they played at home. And he actually has not had a touchdown since week 6. I was looking at his stats a little bit, and I was very surprised to see that. So Carolina's offense is obviously struggling, and Olson isn't getting in the end zone, or hasn't at least since week 6. The Saints are giving up the second fewest fantasy points to tight ends, so they are clamping down on that middle of the field area. The Saints defense isn't great, but they are doing very well against tight ends. And the Panthers offense, like I said, is struggling. They're only 19th in offense in passing, and they're 21st overall in the league in offense. So Cam Newton's not getting it done. There's just not a lot of positives coming out of that Carolina offense. And the Saints are fighting with Atlanta to win the division. Obviously, only one team is going to come out of that division and be in the playoffs this year. So the Saints have something to really play for. This is a big, important game for them. Division game. Panthers are already out of it, so they really don't have a lot to look forward to. So there you go. Those are my go hards, go softs. If you got better people on your bench, put those better people in. Play the good matchups. If there's someone sitting out there on the waiver wire that's looked impressive lately, go ahead and grab them. So that wraps up our show for tonight, you guys. Hopefully you guys will have some playoff questions for us next week. Of course, we gave our Facebook and Twitter at the beginning of the show, but it's facebook.com/BigBallsFantasyFootball, and our Twitter is @BigBallsFBall. So get us your questions so that we can help you choose who to play so that you win your fantasy this year. And that's all we have for you, so good night.